is a few months ago, not too long ago, I was a student at Brown University, and I sort of noticed that there were a lot of issues with Brown that implicated both tuition dollars because it costs like $90,000 a year to go to Brown, but also government funding because Brown receives on the order of magnitude of $500 million a year from the feds as well. And so, like, why is it so expensive? And sort of, I'm a fan of Andrew Yang a little bit, and something that he's been saying for a while now is that the reason why Brown was so expensive is because of all these wasteful practices in the administration, and in particular, the number of administrators. The fact that there are 4,000 or so administrators, and to be clear, we're not talking professors, but we're talking about deans and secretaries and people who do paperwork all day. And why are there so many? And as myself and critics like on all sides of the political spectrum, like Elon Musk or Andrew Yang will say, is that that's kind of weird that there's like twice as many administrators as professors, especially since there haven't been so many in the past. And so I sort of put together a data mining project that really analyzed what they did. And that got a lot of attention. I ended up testifying before Congress about this. They also tried to discipline me, but that case didn't go anywhere and I was cleared. But I ended up testifying before the House Judiciary Committee really about issues about what was going on at Brown and how this was implicating financial aid and our tuition dollars and federal funding. And this really just made me aware that the government they're great and all, but they really can't stay on top of everything that's going on the ground. And I think that's a critical insight that I had, and that my co-founders also had independently. One of my co-founders is a former FTC attorney. He worked in the Biden administration. And what his focus area is really pharma, Medicare, Medicaid, sort of how big pharma companies are cheating and are leading to regulatory capture in ways that are preventing generics from entering market, from lowering prices for consumers. So he's really been interested in this from a different angle. And then our third
Alex, that was David Barclay, right?
that's David Barclay. And then our third co-founder, Sahaj Sharda, he just graduated from Columbia Law, where he wrote a book also about higher ed, about how what the higher ed institutions of higher education are doing with their tuition pricing actually is a violation of antitrust law. And he wrote the book, and then it became a federal class action lawsuit. And all these Ivy League schools have had to settle this for like tens of millions of dollars. And so I think it really goes to show how much grift there is out there, that really the federal government hasn't been effective at putting a stop to so far, and maybe some private market incentives are the way to go here.
How many cases can you take on at once? How long does it take to settle these? Because as a startup, you have to have a business model. Okay, bounty hunting, great. Love it. Boba Fett, IG-88. I like the analogy. But you have to collect the prize. How long will it take you to collect the prize and get your startup to the point at which it becomes sustainable, right? That's going to be the big question from your investors, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think the best maybe comparison that you make fraud bounty hunting to is it will sound unusual, but I think that one of the good comparisons that you can make is by comparing us to a biotech company, because essentially we have sort of these legal assets. The biotech company has pharmaceutical patents, also sort of IP assets, and they take a while of time to develop. Is that you have to pass all these clinical trials and wait for FDA approval and maybe get approved. And so there's some duration there, but eventually you'll win some and you'll lose some. And that's the business model. I think what we have here is pretty similar, is that you're right. It's slow. Is that with these false claims,
5 years, 7 years? What's the estimate in your model for how long it takes to settle these and to get your bounty?
it depends on if the case settles or if it has to go to trial. If it settles, and the DOJ gets involved and really puts pressure on the company, on the fraudster to settle, then that could be as fast as 2 years. But you're right. Is like for some from the longer cases where there's a lot of back and forth and discovery and it goes to trial, is it might take 5 to 7 years. But because we're running numerous cases every year, maybe 10 a year at a good rate, maybe even more than that if we set up in more verticals. We think that that we'll be able to be solvent, not too or pretty soon in the future, because at least some of these will settle.
If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance you're thinking about starting a new business. And that means you're going to need a beautiful website that's going to help you stand out in a very crowded market. That's why I'm so glad to tell you about our longest running partner, Squarespace. It's the fastest, the most effective way to turn your idea into a money-making reality. Squarespace is going to help you find an incredible domain name. It's going to help you build a beautiful homepage, and you're going to start growing your company. Even if you're already a legendary brand, Squarespace is constantly adding helpful new features like Squarespace GPT. It's a guided experience inside ChatGPT that can help you build your website through plain language conversations. Just think about that. And you're going to get pay links, dedicated URLs that make it easy for you to collect payments online. So go to squarespace.com/twist for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/twist for 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Thanks again to Squarespace for being my longest running supporter here on Twist.